Hey guys, I'm back for part 3 of my series on PC specs and how it affects music production. So PC specs and music production. So far I did part 1 and 2. Part 1 was on CPUs. Part 2 was about RAM. I did that last week. And now we're talking about hard drive in this video, which is part 3. So what we're gonna be dealing with is got some quick questions to be answered, and let's get to these notes. All right, so we have, first of all, what is a hard drive, why it's important, what to look for, and alternative storage options. Alternative storage. So, number one, what is a hard drive? So, a hard drive is where you store your files. Your operating system is stored on your hard drive, and all of your files potentially can be stored on your hard drive. Now, why it's important is without it, your computer won't run. It needs somewhere to pull the files from, whether it's files to load your program or the files to load your project within a program, or if you need to open a file, whether it's an image file, some kind of data file. But you need storage. This is where the computer is storing and reading information from, one of the places. So it is your storage for your system. So what to look for? Now, the two things you want to look for is size and speed. So number one, size. Now let's go ahead and just take a look at what hard drives look like and what's going on with technology. So in, I think it was my last video, I had mentioned that things have really jumped forward and made like a major leap as far as advances with hard drives. Definitely. With a lot of the other components on the computer, there hasn't been like any major leaps, but there's been major leaps with the hard drive. So the drive that you're looking at on the screen right now, that's one of the older types of drives. It's what they call like a spinning drive. It has actual metal plates in it stacked on top of each other, and there is a needle head, kind of like on a vinyl record player, that moves around and reads the data. This has become very old and a very antiquated type of hard drive, and it's very, very, very quickly being phased out. So, because it's slow, that's the main reason why, because it is very slow. What is quickly taking over is this drive right here, which is your SSDs. So with this one, SSD stands for solid state. So with the solid state hard drive, the big deal is that there are no moving parts. This is one of the things that was slowing down the other hard drive we were just looking at, was all the moving parts, the spinning disks, and the fact that that search head had to search around and find where the data was, and there are different plates of data. The SSD that we were just looking at, this one right here, this is more like the SD card that you would put in your phone or in a digital camera, if people still use those. But digital cameras, things of that nature. Your phone, something you would stick in your phone, or the SD card that you might stick in your laptop or your computer. So because there are no moving parts, it's just a solid state, hence the name. It's always in a solid state. it needs very little power, and it still stores it when there's no power. It is much faster, and even to take it a step further now is the new kid on the block. It's not that new, but it's still fairly new. Is the M.2, which is a newer form of solid state hard drive. It is smaller. It does resemble, like the form factor resembles a stick of RAM, but it's not RAM. This is a hard drive. These are extremely fast. Very, very, very fast. I've experienced it myself with some gaming stuff, and the difference was night and day. I had a game that I play a lot, and that game, when it was loading, I built a gaming system. I was learning about that, and whenever it was loading that game, it would take like, it's a fighting game with rounds. So every time the new match would start, it would take like 45 seconds to sometimes to a minute and 20 seconds to load. And I was like, why is it loading so slow? Did some research, found out that I needed a faster drive. So I went out and I got an M.2 drive, installed it, and my games, the round started loading in 5 seconds, which was ridiculous to see such a huge jump in time. So the M.2 drives are faster. They are, of course, more expensive. And the bigger size you want in an M.2, the more expensive it gets. With music production, M.2s are not really necessary. If you're really running into issues with your audio lagging with your music production, as far as if you're mixing a pretty large session in your DAW, you have maybe 80 or above 100 tracks of audio, which is indicative of like heavy sound design, and or if you're doing orchestration, then try to get a faster drive, something with a SATA connection. And if that doesn't work, then you have to go M.2. You might be better off installing multiple M.2s. The thing is, most computers now, desktops, they don't come with the onboard M.2 ports, so you have to get a PCI adapter to put the M.2 card on the adapter, and then you'll put the adapter in the PCI slot. So you gotta, go to your local computer store, do some research, speak to them, and find out what are the proper peripherals and devices you need to interface an M.2 drive into your computer. But the main thing with storage, as far as that speed, as far as size, it all depends on what you're doing. So how much work are you doing? How much data are you accumulating on a weekly or a monthly basis? These are the things you got to pay attention to when you start thinking about what size hard drive you need internally. And I'll touch on the whole internal, external thing a little bit later when we talk about storage options. But that's something that you have to pay attention to, is how much data are you collecting weekly or monthly. Sometimes I'm collecting anywhere between 80 to 90 gigs a week. Sometimes, since the quarantine started, I have not been, because my workflow has changed because of the quarantine. But there was a time before that where I was collecting anywhere from 80 to 100 gigs of data weekly. So you got to kind of understand what your needs are. The average person doing music production shouldn't need that much. You shouldn't be collecting data that much. But once again, everybody's situation is unique. So you have to know how much data you are collecting, and get a big enough hard drive to kind of support that. So let's move forward and talk about internal drives versus external drives. So speeds, all that good stuff. Yes. All right, so let's just jump right to alternative storage. and then we'll talk about internal and external. So if your drive is getting full, your internal drive, then you're gonna need to add storage. You can add storage. Most computers can take more internal drives, but it might be easier and more to your advantage to just grab an external drive. Most likely USB, or maybe depending on what you have, you might have a different interface. But USB 3, whatever the latest USB 3 is, 3.1, 3. Whatever the fastest thing is, try to grab that to add more storage so you can get external USB drives. You can back things up, put them away, or you can have it always plugged in. And it's also good for when you need to travel with your data. Another reason why you would need to add storage and why you would also run out of space quickly is if you're the type of producer that uses a lot of large libraries. I'm still streaming. Large libraries. So if you have like Contact, which is one of those popular sampler players, and you have like large 80 gigs, 80 gigs piano library, 80 gig piano library. Last stream I kept saying 80 gigs, and for some reason when I listened back it sounded like I was saying 8 gigs, but I was saying 80 gigs. There are piano libraries out there that's 80 gigs, right? And there are other like orchestration libraries that are even bigger. So if you're the type of person that you grab a lot of those huge sampler libraries, then you're gonna need a lot of storage. Most likely you're gonna want that to be internal, or if it is external, it's a situation where your computer is always stationary and the drive is always connected. It's not something that you're always disconnecting it and switching drives, because reconnecting to the software can be a pain. So based on how you have it configured, you'll kind of figure out if you want to add more internal storage to expand that, or if you just want to expand with internal drives. Of course, expanding with external drives is way easier because you just plug it in as long as you have the ports available and you have more storage based on what you bought. You can buy 500 gigs, a terabyte and a half, 2, 4, 6 terabytes. Another alternative is to have a network drive. This is a drive that's not connected to your computer. It is somehow connected to your network. They have Wi-Fi routers out there that have USB ports on them, and I think they even have modems like that. So you can literally just plug in a USB drive to your Wi-Fi router or your modem, and that drive shows up on your network. So any device that's on your network, whether it's a mobile device or it's another computer, you can access that drive as long as it's on the same network. So that's another option for expanding storage. And then we also have online storage. So that would be like your Google Drives, Dropbox, and all the different services out there that will give you cloud storage where you can store your stuff. There are free options, but you know, the free options are always limited in size. So depending on what you need, it might not be sufficient for you. So you would have to research to see what you would need as far as if you need more. So if you're the type of person where you need 5 terabytes, 10 terabytes or something like that, that's gonna cost you, but it gives you some peace of mind with things that you're backing up. That would be a good way to back your stuff up, so that if you have any hard drive failure on your end, you know that it is backed up in the cloud, and once you get your replacement drive, you can always pull down that data from your online storage. So that's another thing to consider when we're talking about storage. But the main thing we're talking about now is dealing with your system that you have, or you're upgrading and you're doing your music production and you want to have your storage. So if it's something where you have a laptop and you're always traveling around and you have a lot of huge sample libraries, you probably might want a big internal, or if you can add a secondary internal that's a decent size to be able to always have your library. You have something that can store your library and you're not going to run out of space if you have a lot of samples and huge sample libraries. 80 gig, 100 gig pianos. So I think that's about it for that. Yes. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. That's pretty much the whole thing about computer specs and your hard drive and what you need to pay attention to. You want to have a decent speed on your drive. I think in this day and age, everybody should be striving towards, if you're getting a new system, to get this drive right here. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. Try and get these drives. They're a little bit faster. You have less issues with hard drive failure due to the fact that there are no moving parts. So this drive right here, the SSD, this is a 2.5 inch SSD. Depending on what size you get, they're pretty affordable now. There are no moving parts, so they move a bit faster than the ones with the spinning parts. But because of the connection, it's using a SATA connection. It's definitely not as fast as the M.2. Hopefully that will change soon. We'll have more flexibility with the M.2 connections, like something that's portable. The USB ports are getting faster and faster, so this should be definitely sufficient. You can install these internally, and you can also have these as external drives. There are cables you can buy and use them as an external drive to travel around with. It's neater, it's lighter, it's less moving parts. And like I said, if you can step it up and get an M.2 drive, even better. But the M.2s you're not going to be able to get in portable formats that's going to sustain that speed. There are workarounds to get some kind of portable rigs, but the downside to those is that they're not going to maintain that ridiculous speed that you get from the M.2 connection with an M.2 drive. Those are usually built onto your motherboard, or you can put it on your SATA port. Even when you put it on your SATA port, it's not as fast as if you have a motherboard that has a built-in M.2 port on it, but it's still fast. Because like I said, my scenario, it was an old motherboard and I put it on the SATA port with the adapter, and I got a significant boost in speed. So it does make a difference. But if you go M.2 drive to an M.2 port on your motherboard, it will be ridiculously fast. I forgot what the numbers are, but it is like not even milliseconds. I think it's microseconds. Like the response time is ridiculous. So that's pretty much it. That is part 3 on computer specs and how it relates to music production. So far, where are we? So far, I've dealt with CPU, I've dealt with RAM, I just did storage, hard drive and storage. Next up is going to be GPU, and part 5 will be audio interfaces. So that's it, guys. That's it for the video. Computer specs and how it pertains to music production. I'll be back on Wednesday for free app Wednesdays. Remember, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I will be presenting free apps. I already did the one for today. Go back on the channel wherever you're watching this and you'll see the video, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. And as always, you will see me in the next video.